was the assistant for Popovich for years, and then he was the assistant this past season for the Celtics. Just 34 years of age. So this tells me one thing with what they're doing in Utah. They're not necessarily bringing in somebody to satiate Donovan Mitchell, and maybe that means an end to Donovan Mitchell's career, because I would assume this is not a guy that like Donovan Mitchell's 100% behind. They're kind of going like, all right, long-term, almost rebuilding process, I think, where they can bring this guy in and he could oversee it. That's how I would kind of envision it. And then the other thing is he's just 34 years of age. And again, he's got the good pedigree coming from Popovich, Eddie, and then coming from under Ime Udoka, who went to the NBA Finals this year. So that's a big loss on Boston's bench. But I was thinking about it in that, Danny Ainge made the hire, obviously, right? And it's like, think about how long Danny Ainge has been in the NBA, because we were talking about Utah, right? And obviously there's new ownership there under Ryan Smith, but typically, like Utah, they hire a head coach, he's there for a million years, right? Like it's just a pretty solid job when you get it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Danny Ainge, Eddie, has been in the NBA for 20 plus years now as an executive, 20 years as an executive. I think this is going to be his 20th year, maybe upcoming. He's only hired 3 head coaches. He hired Doc Rivers. He's hired Brad Stevens. And now this is his 3rd hire. So, like, you might, and, listen, he's also put together some good teams. He put together a team that won an NBA championship, went to another. And now I'd probably give him credit for most of this one instead of Brad Stevens, because he's the guy that drafted all these guys. So he does a good job in drafting players and putting together rosters. But he really does a good job in hiring head coaches, Eddie. Doc Rivers, Brad Stevens are the only 2 head coaches he's hired in 19, 20 years in the league.
Yeah, and he showed patience with him. Obviously, patience with Doc, that had his struggles initially, and then patience with Brad when you bring over a college coach and he has to adjust to a lot of things NBA-esque. You have to have patience. And so, yeah, I applaud Danny Ainge for doing that. And then he goes to an organization, Justin, that quite honestly, they don't fire their coaches either. I mean, what Utah's had, maybe 8 coaches since they've been in Utah or something like that? I mean, I forgot the number, but it's very low. And they stay a long time. Like, they don't get fired. Like, they give them a chance, even when they struggle. So they had to make the right hire here, is what I'm saying. They had to hire a guy that they thought can be elongated and stay there a while.
And they gave him a 5-year deal, too, so it's not like a little short, like Frank Vogel type of 3-year deal. I mean, they really gave him a long deal.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, he's got good pedigree, and obviously Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert signed off on it.
Well, I don't know.
I can't see them hiring and not consulting.
Well, I mean, if they plan on breaking them up, because I don't think they're going to keep all of these guys.
Right, but the reason they're going to break them up is why? Because they don't think that they're getting along on the court. Now, this guy comes in. What do you think the interview questions was about?
If it's their plan to keep them, yes.
Yes, but they're still going to ask that question. But they're still going to ask that question, right? Like, if you're sitting there as a GM and you're Danny Ainge, you're going to ask the question, hey, how can you get Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert to really coexist better on the court? Show me what you can do. And they pull out the board, and he has to get up there and he has to write stuff out. So I'm saying, regardless whether they're going to trade him or not, like, based on what he said, they might not trade them because based on what he said. Yeah. And then Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, based on what he said, say, okay, I'm good. Let's see if we can make that work. Yeah, so that was the win.
Yeah, now here's what I would say, like in regards, and again, I've been on the record as saying I think Rudy Gobert's the better asset than Donovan Mitchell. Maybe not the better asset because I think teams would give up more for Donovan Mitchell than they would for Rudy Gobert, and Gobert's also a little older. I just think Gobert's the one that impacts winning more, and I would love to see Gobert on a really good team because I think, if he goes to a team that's already got a pretty good defense, you'll be able to see him highlighted even more. I think more of Rudy Gobert than Donovan Mitchell. Anybody that's listened to the show knows that. But can you really envision Danny Ainge, Eddie, who's a guy that's like, Danny Ainge was never in Boston a guy that was fine sitting in the middle. In fact, he said it over, at one point, he's like, the worst place to be is in the middle. He's a guy like traded Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. If he's willing to trade Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, Eddie, after they won a championship in Boston, then he's sure as hell willing to pull the plug on like Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, right? Because those guys actually meant something to him. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert mean nothing to him. He just got there in the middle of this past year. And Ainge is not the type of guy that's like playing for like, hey, the 5th seed and get eliminated in the 1st or the 2nd round. And that's really like the ceiling for this Jazz team is currently constituted with these as the 2 pillars. So I can't imagine Danny Ainge like not pulling the plug on this.
I think he wants to give it a shot because he has 2 very good basketball players. He has a guy that can go get a shot anywhere on the court, and he's got a guy at the rim that's going to protect that defense, and is very unselfish. He just wants a few shots. He doesn't want a ton of shots. He's not running around like he's Joel Embiid. He's just saying, man, just give me some touches. Like, treat me halfway the way my French national team does. They throw me the damn ball.
But is Danny Ainge the type of executive that's fine with like being middle of the road? Because this team's not winning an NBA championship.
No, but in the West,
like,
right?
He's like the type of guy that's just like, I mean, that's the way he's run his teams in the past, where it's like championship or bust, and if not, then I'm going to make a change.
But in the West, like if you're gonna win, right? If Denver gets healthy, well, you need somebody to defend, right? Jokic. I mean, that's how you kind of look at it. Like, you can't, in order to try to match up with Golden State, you got to pretty much change your entire team. Like, that's why I say it's so difficult. It's like fool's gold to try to match up with Golden State. You got to beat them with the opposite, because you're not going to match up with them. Like, you're not matching up with Memphis. Like, you got to beat them another way. Like, so if you go out there, oh, yeah, Memphis is small, they run, we got to try to match up with them, you're going to lose, man. Because it's just hard. It took years for Memphis to get to where they are with those guys. It took years for Golden State. Like, you're not going to just all of a sudden in 1 or 2 years match up with those guys. Like, you got to be you. The Suns won 64 games last year being them. With a big dude in Ayton, and they playing a slow, methodical way, run when they had to, control tempo, and they won that way. So, and that's Utah. But they just need to get those two guys on board together. Donovan, give the man more touches. Donovan, early in the first quarter, who cares? You're down 5, you're down 6, you're down 8. Who cares? Get him the ball. Get him engaged. So now defensively, he's in tune the rest of the game. Okay? I mean, that's the way they should think, and I'm pretty sure that's what Hardy's going to try to do.
All right, 855 NBA Jump, 855-622-5.